The shocking truth behind Ezekiel's prophecies, revealed at midnight. You won't believe this. Late one stormy night, as thunder cracked the sky open and rain poured like a wild beast, a ripple of chaos washed over the small town of Willow Creek. There, in an old, creaking chapel, something sinister was stirring. The air thickened with unease, each heartbeat echoing like a warning. Just before the clock struck 12, a shadowy figure appeared, cloaked in darkness, his eyes glinting like two shards of glass. People whispered, agonized over the sign he had come to show. Could Ezekiel's fabled prophecies really be coming to life? The chapel was ablaze with flickering candlelight, but outside, the storm fiercely howled. The village's lore pulsed in whispers, as old-timers would say, when the time comes, the one will rise, and the truth will shake the heavens. Ezekiel's prophecies had always been cloaked in mystery, rumors of fire raining down, visions of doom depicted in cryptic drawings hidden in the town's archives. But this night felt different. Hair stood on the back of necks, as a chill danced over the crowd gathered there. People clutched their loved ones in the worn pews around them, breathless, as the figure raised a trembling hand. A whisper escaped his lips, strange and melodic. The words seemed to pull at the very fabric of reality, causing the candles to flicker violently, as if the flames were trying to escape their holders. Every eye was glued to him, and you could nearly hear the pulse of the town racing. Was it fear? Anticipation? Or both? The growing tension was palpable, the kind that makes the hairs on your arms stand upright, shivers gripping your spine. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the haunting words echoed in the still air, a distant crack of lightning illuminated the figure's face, revealing a past marred by scars and secrets. The town drew a collective breath, a hush settling like a heavy fog. What ancient truth lay hidden behind his prophecies? The air grew heavy with dread, and a sense of impending terror loomed, wrapping around hearts like a vice. Every scrunched face among the audience spoke of confusion, fear, and undeniable curiosity. Could it be? Were they truly on the brink of unveiling something monumental that night? All at once, he pointed into the dark corners of the chapel, where shadows held their breath. A wall of silence fell, before the room rattled with hushed gasps. Something stirred. The air crackled like static electricity, and anticipation broke like a wave crashing ashore. As if time stood still, the figure declared, "Tonight, the veil shall be lifted, and the truth of Ezekiel's prophecies will come at a cost." Everyone leaned closer, unaware that one question would shatter their small world: what price would they have to pay to witness the revelation? In that moment, the only certainty was that nothing would ever be the same again. The flickering light of the candles cast long, dancing shadows that swallowed parts of the crowd, blurring the lines between friend and foe. Fear mingled with uncertainty. Whispers erupted as people exchanged glances, seeking solace in shared terror. The figure in the chapel, the prophet, seemed to draw energy from their fear, a dark well of power that set his features aglow with an otherworldly sheen. Just then, a loud thunderclap boomed overhead, rattling the stained glass windows. The sound seemed to awaken something deep within the chapel's walls. Those terrified murmurs escalated to gasps, and hearts leapt as trembling hands gripped the edges of prayer books, clenching them for strength. The man's voice rang out again, deeper now, resonating through the very marrow of their bones. "Many will forget the price once the truth shines bright before them," he warned, his voice echoing ominously. "But be cautious. In embracing the light, shadows will encroach upon your souls." His eyes sparkled with a manic intensity that made stomachs churn and minds race. What shadows lay waiting in the corners of their hearts? Who among them was brave enough to ask? A chill slithered through the crowd as a young woman in the front row, her forehead slick with sweat, dared to speak up. "What must we do?" The air in the chapel grew heavier. The prophet's gaze snapped toward her, and for a moment, all eyes followed his. "You must reveal your deepest fear," he said, his his voice a conspiratorial whisper, and in doing so, you may unleash the truth buried beneath layers of shadow. Skepticism clashed with curiosity. Murmurs swept through the crowd like wildfire, fanning the flames of intrigue. What secrets had they tucked away? What nightmares lurked just beneath the surface of their ordinary lives? The question piqued the interest of some, while others visibly recoiled, their instinct for self-preservation kicking in. A man in the back rows, his voice shaky yet assertive. What if the truth is worse than our fears? Exactly, the prophet replied, lips curling into a smile that sent shivers through the crowd. But what if it's the very antidote that you seek? At that moment, the chapel doors creaked open, allowing a gust of wind to sweep in, rustling the candles that struggled to remain lit. The sharp scent of rain-soaked earth melded with the incense lingering in the air, creating an intoxicating blend that intoxicated their senses. For those who hesitated, the truth was as close as the door they feared to cross. Then, in a heartbeat, voices twisted into a cacophony of confessions. One by one, they began to share. A fear of failure, a fear of love lost, betrayal, and of losing their children. Eager to feel the weight of their vulnerabilities lifted, each confessor grew more animated, lighter. But dread began to creep through the hearts of those silent. One woman, her expression stiff, completed her confession, and the room held its breath. Her fear ebbed like a cold tide, but in her panic, she couldn't shake the eerie sensation that watching eyes lurked just beyond where they were gathered. Please, she whispered, the tremor in her voice catching the attention of every soul. What happens once we share? What is revealed? The moment hung suspended, heavy and thick with expectation. The prophet raised his hands, drawing the energy towards him, chaos swirling like the storm outside. Then you will understand what has been seen cannot be unseen. With a final flare in his voice, thunder cracked again, and the lights blinked, dimming ominously, as if the universe itself held its breath. What awaited them in the darkness? What terrible truths lay ahead? And just like that, Willow Creek braced itself for the unimaginable. The atmosphere thickened, overshadowed by a heavy silence that hung above the chapel like a dense fog. It was as if the walls themselves had joined in their anticipation, straining to hear the truths that refused to break free. The prophet, basking in the energy of their fears, lowered his hands and looked out over the anxious faces. Fears are but mirrors, he continued, his voice now an almost hypnotic murmur. They show us not what we see in ourselves, but what we dare not face. But beware, for the truth will not be kind. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows like a funeral dirge calling them to confront the unknown. Candles flickered erratically, shadows leaping toward the vaulted ceiling, making the figures of the entranced congregation appear as ghostly apparitions. One older man clutched his chest, eyes wide, reflecting the depth of his internal struggle. Willow Creek must choose, the prophet said, raising his voice to slice through the tension. Will you walk this path, veiled in shadows, or will you step into the light, no matter the price? The crowd was torn. Some nodded in agreement, while others instinctively took a step back, as though the very act of moving forward invited calamity. A whisper drifted through the rows, growing louder, wrapping around them like a creeping vine. I can't do it. The young woman in the front row felt a jolt of courage. What if we choose to stay in the shadows? She called out, her voice trembling but clear. What happens then? Then, the prophet replied slowly, drawing his gaze across the room, you live your lives shackled by the chains of fear. Each moment a prison, with walls built from your own making. But if you dare to fight, to unveil your truths. He paused, letting the suspense build, the shadows will flee, revealing a power you never knew you possessed. A flicker of hope buzzed in the air, just as a lightning bolt split the sky outside, illuminating the chapel in stark brilliance for a brief instant. Gasps erupted as sunlight streamed momentarily through the stained glass, casting colors across anxious faces. And, in that moment, it was clear, fear and hope danced hand in hand, each begging for attention. Distrust floated among them, thick as the incense still swirling in the air. Was this just some trick? Was he leading them to despair instead of freedom? The cacophony of whispers grew. What each member had stashed away was no longer just theirs. Now it thrummed through the room, coiling and writhing like a serpent awaiting a chance to strike. Speak your truth. The woman urged, her voice rising above the hesitation, even as her heart raced. What is our price? The prophet's eyes narrowed, glowing with that manic energy. The price is your comfort, he spoke, the weight of his words crashing against the cacophony of doubt. In revealing your fears, you expose your soul. But listen. There may also be an unexpected gift if you have the courage to take the leap. A shared glance between two friends ignited something deeper, a connection that transcended their individual fears. It began with a shaking hand raised toward the altar, a gesture that seemed to ripple through the crowd. Silence fell, the tension palpable, hearts thudding in unison. Suddenly, from the back, a man stood and, breath hitched, began to speak. I fear that I am not brave enough for what lies ahead. The air crackled, a storm brewing both within and without. Shadows shifted, distancing themselves from the confined space of their hearts as if to listen. The man's admission hung in the air, a clarion call demanding a response, and just as the first confession fell, another voice broke through, trembling yet fierce. I fear this is only the beginning. The prophet smiled. Ah, but the truth is always dancing just beyond the horizon. What lay beyond that horizon? The whispers grew louder, more fervent. Did they dare to follow their fears or let the shadows engulf them? As the thunder rolled once more, a promise echoed, a new truth would arise, but at what cost? Willow Creek stood on the brink of revelation, and it was only a matter of time before everything would change forever. The chapel was a cauldron of conflicting emotions, and as the thunder cracked overhead, the earth itself seemed to tremble. The apprehensive chatter began to swell as more people felt the weight of their internal storms bubbling to the surface. Confessions crept up like vines, twisting through the congregation, desperate to escape. The man who had spoken first, visibly shaken, lowered his head in shame. The frenzied pressure began to rise, pushing other souls to the edge of their own veils. A woman in the corner, her hands trembling, whispered, "What if we're not strong enough? What if we can't handle it?" Strength lies not in silence but in the courage to speak. The prophet's voice cut through the doubts like a knife. He advanced towards her, his gaze piercing. But to unveil your strength means to face the unthinkable. A chill swept through the room at those words. The candles flickered, casting ominous shadows that danced madly on the walls, as if echoing the chaos within. The wind howled outside, as if nature itself responded to their turmoil. I have secrets, she said, her voice wavering. Secrets that could destroy me. Then let them out. The prophet's eyes glinted with fervor, as if he thrived on the energy of their fears. You are not alone in this. You are part of something greater. And with that invitation, the floodgates burst open. A man in the front row rose slowly, the resolve plastered on his face amid fear. I fear that I will be rejected, he exclaimed, voice resonating through the space. That my family will shun me if they know who I truly am. My life has been a lie. Gasps echoed, mingling with the roar of the storm outside. The truth of his words hung in the air, a heavy truth that pressed upon their hearts. The whispers morphed into urgent conversations as hearts raced and breaths quickened. In this church, a woman added fiercely, we have buried our truths to fit in. We fear our own shadows. Her outburst ignited a chorus of agreement, fists clenched, voices rising in passion. In that moment, they took a collective deep breath, as if they were exhaling years of repression. Secrets uncoiled, pushing through lips now daring to speak. Confessions blurred the lines between individual fears and a communal battle. They found solace in their shared pain, realizing they stood together at the precipice. Then a voice cracked from the back, low and trembling. What if the truth is worse than the pain of hiding? A heavy silence fell. The prophet smiled knowingly. Ah, but the truth is only terrifying if you fear it. The moment you confront it is the moment you reclaim your power. The storm outside howled fiercely, mirroring the turmoil within. The light flickered ominously, shadows stretching like fingers seeking to clutch their hearts. Just as the tension reached its peak, another boom of thunder threatened to break the moment. Everyone froze, eyes darting to the windows as rain began to patter heavily. In that quiet chaos, a girl barely in her teens hesitantly rose. Eyes wide, she stammered, but what if facing our fears brings only more horrors? What will that cost us? Will we lose ourselves? The prophet faced her, and for the first time, his expression softened. The cost may be great, you may lose your illusions and comforts. But in returning, you will find the strength you never knew existed. The air thickened again with uncertainty. The questions loomed heavier than ever, each individual trapped in their own internal battle. Would they dare to take that leap of faith? Just then, the candles extinguished one by one, plunging the chapel into darkness. A terrified murmur swept through the crowd, heartbeats audible in the oppressive silence, and then, breaking through the darkness, came a blast of light, a figure seemingly emerging from the shadows behind the prophet. What secrets did they hold? What truths were about to be unveiled amid the chaos? The figure stepped into the light, revealing a man cloaked in a deep black robe that seemed to absorb the flickering flames. His face was shrouded, but a pair of eyes glowed beneath the hood, illuminating fragments of the overflowing chapel with an otherworldly fire. Gasps echoed again, as the crowd instinctively took steps back, their combined fear pressing against the edges of their courage. "Stay your breath," the cloaked man called out, his voice a low rumble that reverberated against the chapel as cold stone walls. "Your secrets are not just whispers anymore, they are the air we breathe. And I have come to guide you through." The prophetess expression shifted to a blend of concern and curiosity. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice steady despite the churning commotion around them. The stranger raised a hand, silencing the questions that swirled like a storm. "I am the seer. I come not to judge but to unveil what you have hidden even from yourselves." With those words, the air thickened with tension, heavy with the weight of anticipation. A hush fell over the congregation as disbelief wrestled with intrigue. "What are you?" someone stammered, but the seer's gaze pinned them in place. "The truth you dread is knocking at your door," he replied, his voice softer now. "Each one of you carries the weight of 1,000 buried fears. Tonight, the storm outside matches the storm within." Eyes darted around the room. A man clutched the pew in front of him, white-knuckled, while a woman wiped her tears, still trembling. It was a fever pitch of awakening, every soul provoked by the shadows that had loomed for too long. As thunder roared once again, the seer raised his hands and a surge of energy pulsed through the air, a low hum vibrating with an ancient power. "What if I told you the fears you keep are the seeds of your greatest strength? What if I told you your individual stories are threads in a tapestry far too vast to comprehend?" Murmurs swelled once more, hearts racing. Someone in the back shouted, "What do you mean?" The seer stepped forward, each movement deliberate, captivating. "What you fear most, your truths, your identities, the struggles within, they are keys. The keys to unlocking the potential you've suppressed. Tonight, face the darkness, for it is only there that you will find your true selves." Each heartbeat resonated with hope and anxiety, a collective yearning to shed the layers that weighed them down. The storm outside felt like a prelude to the hurricane of change brewing inside the chapel. Then, without warning, the ground trembled beneath them. Gasps erupted, feet shifting, as shadows twisted in the corners of their eyes. But the seer remained unfazed. His focus sharpened, as if he was drawing energy directly from their fear. "Listen closely," he exclaimed, voice ringing with authority. "You have a choice. Step into your light or be consumed by your darkness." Suddenly, the room plunged into almost complete darkness. Only the faint glow of the seer's eyes illuminated the space. A collective intake of breath cut through the shadows, hearts pounding wildly. The air thickened with the scent of fear and anticipation. At that moment, whispers broke out, questions spiraling in frantic loops. Every doubt, every worry, every hidden truth surged forth like a tide desperate to breach its confines. "What if we refuse?" one voice asked, quivering. "Then you remain in the shadows," the seer answered, his voice echoing ominously. "But remember, it's the secrets that you protect that may one day protect you, from yourselves." As the chapel trembled with uncertainty, a low growl of thunder rumbled outside, a symphony to the chaos brewing within. Just then, flickering lights began to return, revealing frightened yet determined faces. No one could shake the feeling that the moment of revelation was at hand, hanging heavy in the air like the storm outside. Would they confront the hidden truths that lay waiting in the darkness? A crack of lightning illuminated the chapel one last time, and then silence fell, a stillness so absolute it felt like the world was holding its breath. What secrets lay beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered? The silence was shattered by a sudden crash, the pews rattling against the stone floor as if compelled by an unseen force. The light flickered back on, revealing a scene frozen in time. Mouths gaped wide, eyes strained with disbelief, each individual holding their secrets close like sacred relics. Time creeps on silently, the seer spoke, his voice smooth like silk, but the clock strikes louder for those who refuse to listen. Then, in a swift motion, he pointed towards Ezekiel, the town's long-silenced prophet, who stood pallid and trembling. "You know them well, don't you, Ezekiel? The truths that bind your feet to the earth while your spirit longs to soar?" Gasps erupted, followed by anxious shuffling. Ezekiel's face drained of color. He struggled to form words, but finally, stammered, "How can you? I've buried those horrors, they are best left dead." The seer's eyes shone brighter, alive with an intensity that could set the world ablaze. "But burying them has only fed the fire. Tonight, we dig them out and confront what has been buried beneath these very stones." A murmur rippled through the congregation, questions intertwining with uncertainty. Were they mere spectators now? Or participants in a fate that would unite or shatter them? "I have seen too much," Ezekiel pleaded, sweat beading on his brow. "The visions haunt me, the warnings scream in my dreams." The seer stepped closer, his presence both daunting and magnetic. "Then don't you see? Your nightmares are not just shadows but signs. They are the echoes of what is festering in your community, your city." Ezekiel backed away, an anchor that could not escape the tide. I can't. The tension turned electric as the whisper of a name drifted through the crowd. Anna. It was a murmur barely spoken but reverberated painfully. Eyes turned sharply to Anna, a woman with a scar now burning in her cheeks. "What about me?" she exclaimed, a mix of anger and fear. "I am not defined by my past. I won't let it dictate my future." The seer didn't flinch. "But you must. Buried beneath that beautiful facade is a story made of sorrow, guilt, and power. What cost will you pay to protect the lie?" The room shook again, but it wasn't the storm outside this time. It was the collective realization of their truths, breaking free like trapped birds. People shifted nervously. Shadows danced in their eyes as they felt cornered, forced to face what they had tried to avoid. "Stand not just for yourselves tonight," the seer urged, his voice galvanizing. "Stand for those who remain in the shadows. Those who lost their way, just like you." The murmurs grew into anxious whispers, rippling through the crowd like water breaking through a dam. They felt the weight of their hidden pain, their burdens mounting as a fanfare of deafening thunder erupted outside. "Are you ready to wrestle your demons?" The seer beckoned, his glowing eyes surveying the crowd. "Or will you cower while the storm rips through your hearts?" With this challenge, silence momentarily paused. The storm seemed to pause as well, waiting, hoping, teasing without mercy. Ezekiel's voice cracked through the stillness. "I will not let the past drown me. My truth belongs to me." Around him, people began to shift, the fear melting away into resolute determination. Would they follow Ezekiel's lead into the unknown? Would they allow the seer to uncover their hidden truths and social sins? And then, as if in perfect choreography, the chapel lights flickered once more, plunging the room back into darkness. Each breath began to feel heavier, a palpable tension cradling every soul inside. Suddenly, an ear-splitting scream erupted from the shadows, cutting through the charged silence like glass. "What was that?" cried a frantic voice from the back. But the seer stood tall, eyes bright. "The darkness will answer your call, but are you truly prepared to hear it?" As anticipation thickened in the air, trembling hands reached out, souls poised on the brink of revelation. Just beyond their perilous choice, the truth lay waiting like a predator in the dark. What lay concealed in the shadows, and who would be brave enough to confront it? The scream faded into a strange, heavy silence, its echo filling the chapel like a ghost hovering over the congregation. Hearts raced, breaths stilled, as if they were all caught in a moment suspended in time, teetering on the edge of an abyss. The seer remained unfazed, the light in his eyes flickering like the dying glow of a candle. "This is merely the beginning," he declared, his voice slicing through the tension. "The shadows will claw their way into the light, whether you invite them or not." Ezekiel blinked rapidly, his chest pounding fiercely. A slew of memories flooded his mind, faces of the lost, their haunting eyes begging for justice. He could no longer ignore the weight of guilt pressing down on him. I can't fight this alone, he trembled, his voice barely a whisper. Yes, you can. Anna shouted, stepping forward, her voice shaking but determined. You aren't alone in this. We all have something we've buried. Let us face it together. The crowd murmured in agreement, a fragile thread of courage weaving through their fear. Each person bore their own scars, each secret a little weight they dared not share. But the seer knew them all, his gaze piercing through their facades, grasping the truth hidden beneath layers of shame. The doors creaked open eerily, gusts of wind howling through the chapel as if demanding the old secrets be unearthed. Cold air brushed against their skin, sending shivers down their spines, a reminder of what had been left unspoken for far too long. Who's screaming? Someone gasped, clutching a neighbor's arm, their eyes wide with panic. I don't know. Another voice rang out, quivering like a string pulled taut. It came from behind the altar. What if it's something supernatural? A wave of fear surged through the group, awkward glances darting across the room as dread deepened. Or someone, Ezekiel murmured, his trembling fingers pointing toward the darkness that loomed just beyond their circle. Anna, we must. But before he could continue, the heavy silence shattered once more. A figure emerged from the shadows at the altar, wrapped in darkness, their face obscured. Each footstep was a slow tolling of a bell, resonating with a dreadful anticipation. Stop! The seer commanded, raising a hand, though even he seemed unsettled by what was unfolding. His confident exterior had begun to waver, revealing an inkling of fear, a stark contrast to the commanding spirit he displayed before. Who dares show themselves? He boomed, trying to reclaim the authority of the moment. The figure edged forward, a whisper of recognition skimming through the congregation. Ezekiel felt his heart stop when he caught a glimpse of the shape, a woman, draped in shadow yet radiating a bone-chilling familiarity. Asha, he breathed, the name slipping through his lips like a silent prayer. It was a name accompanied by painful memories, the kind of memories that clawed and gnawed at the essence of who he thought he was. The lost child of years gone by, the crowd gasped collectively. Asha was a name spoken only in hushed tones, a name linked to tragedy and untold sorrow. The tension pulsed in the room, suffocating in its intensity. What are you doing here? Ezekiel asked, his eyes wide. I'm here to show you the truth you've concealed beneath layers of guilt, Asha stated, her voice steady but laced with pain. Your eyes have long been shut to it, but tonight, the truth will unfold like wildfire. With every word she spoke, shadows coiled tighter around them. The winds outside rose again, a howling tempest that threatened to sweep away their resolve. Would they be strong enough to face the storm, to confront the secrets that had haunted them for so long? Are you ready to hear her truth? The seer challenged, throwing a glance toward Ezekiel and Anna. Could they stand together, face the pain that had ripped them apart? Or would they tumble back into the abyss they had carefully crafted with silence? As Asha took another step forward, the very air around them crackled with anticipation. The light flickered once more, illuminating Asha's haunted gaze, a look that promised revelations and reckoning. The moment had come. Would they choose to face the darkness, or would they retreat back into the lies? And at the heart of it all, two truths loomed large, waiting to collide with a force that could change everything. Ezekiel's breath hitched, caught between the weight of Asha's words and the fierce storm of emotions swirling within him. As she stood before him, surrounded by shadows that writhed and whispered, a rush of memories flooded his mind, moments lost, secrets buried so deep they felt like a forgotten ghost of his past. Can we trust her? Anna murmured, her grip tightening on Ezekiel's arm. He could feel her fear pulsing through her like an electric current, and it mirrored his own rising terror. The seer, still standing resolute but trembling slightly, stepped closer to Asha. If you have brought the truth, he called out, his voice steady yet tinged with uncertainty, then speak it. We are ready. Are we? Ezekiel thought, his insides churning. The truth felt like a double-edged sword, and he could almost hear the anguished cries of the past echoing against his conscience. Asha took another step forward, the darkness clinging to her like a shroud. You think you know the stories, Ezekiel? The ones about loss and sorrow, she said, her voice resonating through the chapel with a haunting clarity. But what you don't realize is you are at the center of it all. He flinched, the words ripping through him like shards of glass. No, I can't be. This isn't my doing, he protested, though even as he spoke, doubt began to creep into his heart. Isn't it? She pressed, her voice softening. You know that the past is not just a collection of memories, it's an anchor weighing you down. You're scared to look, Ezekiel. Scared to face your part in this tragedy. The crowd held its breath, eyes darting between Asha and Ezekiel, waiting for the storm within him to break. The wind outside howled louder, rattling the chapel as though the walls themselves were trembling in anticipation. Then, with a sudden, fiery determination, Ezekiel shouted, "Enough! I will not be defined by my past. We have all suffered." Asha's gaze sharpened, penetrating and fierce. Suffering is part of the truth. You need to acknowledge it. Open your eyes, Ezekiel. You are the key. The seer, momentarily speechless, glanced at Ezekiel. A spark of realization flashed within his eyes. He is right in a way, he said slowly, a hint of awe creeping into his voice. One cannot forge ahead without confronting what lies behind them. But with every truth, there is a toll to pay. What do you mean? Anna swallowed hard, uncertainty clouding her features. What toll? Asha stepped forward, her form becoming clearer, the shadows reluctantly retreating, revealing the depth of her grief. One must sacrifice something to embrace the truth. What will you give up, Ezekiel? What are you willing to lose? The question hung heavily in the air, suffocating yet electrifying. Ezekiel felt the heat rising in his chest, panicking as he grasped for words, his mind racing back to all the things he held dear, the relationships, the dreams, even the guilt he kept buried deep inside. I don't know. He cried out, hands trembling at his sides. The congregation held its breath, their eyes wide, sensing the electric tension that crackled among them. If you want the truth, you must risk the pain, Asha urged, her voice steady, almost soothing. Your silence has kept the darkness at bay, but it will consume you if you let it. It won't spare anyone. Ezekiel's heart thrummed violently. He felt like a puppet on strings, pulled in every direction by emotions he had long avoided. I'm not ready. I can't, but how long can you hold back the inevitable? Came Asha's reply, her voice now resonating with a haunting melody. The darkness you fear is not just outside, it's within. Embrace it, or it will destroy you. The pressure mounted as the shadows grew bolder, swirling around them, and the wind howled fiercely. Ezekiel looked towards Anna, her face a mix of fear and determination. The room held its breath, and he knew that he had a choice to make. But both options felt like a leap into the unknown. As Ezekiel opened his mouth to respond, the lights above flickered, plunging them into darkness for a heartbeat. The chapel trembled, teetering on the edge of destiny. What choice would he make? What truth awaited him on the other side? And as the darkness swirled, the shadows began to draw closer, eager to claim what they sought. Would Ezekiel muster the courage to confront his inner demons, or would he remain shackled by the chains of his past? The answers lay just beyond the veil of silence. The silence was deafening. Ezekiel's heart raced, pounding against his ribcage like a caged animal desperate to escape. The chapel felt as if it were closing in a cocoon of secrets, smothering him under the weight of unspoken truths. The flickering lights returned for an instant, illuminating Asha's face, which was now an expression of fierce determination. You must choose. She shouted over the howling wind. Truth or denial. Freedom or chains. But know this: what you choose tonight will change everything. Ezekiel's mind spiraled. Memories surged: his mother's tears, his father's cold anger, the friends he had lost along the way. Each memory a reminder of a past he wanted to escape, a past he did not understand. Looking into Anna's eyes, he saw a reflection of his own fears. What if it destroys me? He whispered, almost to himself. Asha stepped closer, her voice softer now, almost like a lullaby in the storm. You've carried the weight of this darkness alone for too long, Ezekiel. Share it. Let it out. The shadows crept ever closer, sensing his hesitance, their whispers rising in a cacophony of accusations and fears. Ezekiel squeezed his eyes shut, overwhelmed. But deep down, something stirred, a flicker of resolve ignited by Asha's words. I can't keep running from my past. It's part of me. He felt a jolt as if the air crackled around him. The seer stepped back, his gaze shifting from Ezekiel to Asha. What have you done to him? He demanded, skin pale against the dim light. I've given him the chance to take control of his destiny, Asha replied, unwavering. But he must decide the sacrifice. Ezekiel took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the chilly air. What do I have to lose? He shouted, with newfound authority. If facing the truth means setting us all free, then that's what I'll do. The shadows recoiled, as if a light had pierced their gloom. Asha's demeanor shifted again, her eyes sparkling with intrigue and urgency. Very well. But understand, the truth you unearth tonight will come with consequences. Are you prepared? Nodding with determination, Ezekiel felt the ground beneath him harden, the tremors of fear calming. I'm ready. Let it come. Asha closed her eyes, and the chapel filled with an oppressive energy. The temperature dropped, and for a moment, the world stilled. Then speak it. Claim your past, Ezekiel. Let it rise. As he opened his mouth, a chaos of emotions swelled within him: anger, grief, love, and regret. I lost my childhood the day I learned my father wasn't who he pretended to be. The truth erupted from him like magma from a volcanic fissure. We've been hiding from the darkness, but in hiding, we've allowed it to grow. The congregation gasped. Anna's eyes widened, reflecting both horror and relief. With each confession, the shadows writhed and twisted, almost yelling in protest. Ezekiel pressed on. I loved my mother, but her silence stole my youth. I blamed myself for my father's wrath. But I refused to shoulder that burden any longer. I am not alone in this. A spirit of rebellion surged among the gathered crowd, emboldening their own truths. We all have scars. We are bound together by our pain. Ezekiel declared, his voice echoing through the chapel. Suddenly, the wind ceased, and an unnatural stillness enveloped them. The air was thick, pregnant with promise. Asha took a step back, her eyes glinting in the dim light. You have unlocked the first door, Ezekiel. But beware, the past holds many secrets yet to discover. Ezekiel felt a flicker of unease, but there was warmth in his chest, a wholeness that had been absent too long. What comes next? He asked, uncertain yet curious. With a serene smile, Asha replied, the next truth awaits. You must confront the shadows that have claimed so much of your life. They are watching, waiting for you to take the next step. Ezekiel turned, his gaze sweeping across the worried faces of Anna and the crowd. The weight of countless unspoken fears lingered in the air. And if I fail? What then? The shadows stirred, drawing closer, hungry for his doubt. Then they will continue to hold you captive, Asha said, her whisper carrying the weight of fate. But this time, you will not face them alone. As shadows closed in, Ezekiel stood on the edge of revelation and fear, ready to face whatever darkness awaited him, but the truth was relentless. What would it demand next? Would he be able to rise from the ashes, or would he succumb to his nightmares? The darkness loomed, shifting and swirling, eager to unveil its secrets. The tension in the chapel climbed higher, like a simmering pot ready to boil over. The anticipation was electric, crackling in the air with every heartbeat. Ezekiel squared his shoulders, the weight of everyone's hopes resting heavily upon him. With every breath, he felt the shadows stretching closer, their fingers clawing at his resolve. I refuse to let you control my life any longer. He bellowed, voice straining against the rising pitch of fear. The walls echoed back his defiance, fueling his courage. The seer stepped forward, eyes bright with the intensity of ancient knowledge. Bravery is not the absence of fear, but the will to confront it, he declared. Speak now, warrior of Willow Creek. What fears will you embrace to liberate your truth? Ezekiel's heart drummed furiously in his chest, but he forced his mouth open. I will confront the pain of loss, the anguish of betrayal, the guilt that has haunted me. His voice shook the very foundations of the chapel. The shadows recoiled as if they had been struck. Those around him shifted uneasily, some gasping, others nodded in solidarity. Every secret holds power, Asha said softly, her presence now a comforting glow. You must carve a path through the fear. Look beyond the pain and rise. The chilling wind howled outside, rattling the windows as if urging them to break free. Together! Anna shouted, her eyes teeming with bravery as she squeezed Ezekiel's hand. We face the darkness as one. Let our truths illuminate the shadows. A surge of unity washed over the crowd. One by one, others began to share their truths, feelings of inadequacy, harrowing losses, buried regrets. The shadows writhed in agitation, but their power weakened against the tide of honesty. I fear the loneliness of living in a lie. A man cried out. I fear the life I've built on falsehoods. His confession echoed in the air, and the crowd erupted in support, voices harmonizing with one another. I fear I'll never be seen for who I truly am. Came another cry. Ezekiel felt the warmth of their voices wrap around him like a blanket. Keep going, he urged. Speak your truths. We're better together. As shadows receded, light broke through a warm glow that felt akin to freedom. With every word spoken, the air lightened. The storm outside seemed to ease, the clouds parting for the moon to break through. This is light coming through the cracks of our fears. Ezekiel spoke passionately. We've been shackled long enough, it's time we break free. A hush settled over the group. Their shared confessions filled the air, weaving a tapestry of understanding and resilience. The energy pulsed, radiating a collective determination. They could almost hear the silence of the night joining them in solidarity, sharing their surging courage, and just when it felt as if the moment would solidify this newfound freedom, a chilling scream shattered the peace, piercing through the chapel once more like a knife. Panic gripped the congregation. What was that? Someone yelled, eyes wide with fear. Stay together! Ezekiel shouted, voice rising above the clamor. We're not finished yet. We face this together. The strange figure from before the seer calmly turned, confronting the darkness. Reveal yourself. He called, voice steady but edged with urgency. The air was thick with dread, the congregation's hearts racing as if caught in the eye of a storm. The shadows slithered backwards, coalescing before them, revealing a figure shrouded in darkness. It was Asha, only she had changed. Her eyes smoldered with a fierce intensity, her presence magnified. Your truths have weakened them, she pronounced, the energy around her firmer than before. But the time has come to confront what has been dormant. Ezekiel breathed heavily, intuition screaming at him. He sensed the looming fear might swallow them whole if they didn't react. It's time to let go of the past, he declared, his voice steady, anchoring those wavering beside him. We will not be defined by these shadows. A moment hung suspended, pregnant with the weight of truth. Gritting his teeth, he stepped forward, eyes locked onto Asha's. You may be dark, but you do not own me. I am my own. Her gaze softened. Let go, Ezekiel. Allow the light to purge the shadow. The moment echoed, and he felt an ancestral power surge through him. We stand united, he yelled, voice trembling with conviction. Together, we defy these long-buried fears. With one great roar, the congregation erupted into a chorus of affirmation. Their voices rose in one harmonized shout, a thunderous rebellion against the darkness. Each fear, each lie buried, began to crack. In that instant, the chapel erupted in blinding light. A kaleidoscope of colors spun across the room, enveloping the shadows. Screams reverberated as they spiraled, banished from their midst, shrieking into the void. As the tempest of clarity swirled around them, Ezekiel felt the darkness dissipate, leaving behind a palpable weight that had been lifting for far too long. With the shadows chased away, joy and reprieve flooded their hearts, like the first rays of dawn piercing through night's cold grasp. The storm outside rumbled, but it no longer felt threatening. It was cleansing, rejuvenating. Look! Asha exclaimed, her voice now a gentle caress. You've discovered how powerfully connected you are, how your truths can undo the tangled web of shadows. Ezekiel turned, taking in the faces around him. The fear transformed into resolve. They were a community reborn, no longer defined by darkness. We've taken the first step. We are free. he proclaimed, joy suffusing every word. Now, let us carry this light into the world. Each heart now pulsed not just with shared pain but with renewed hope. As laughter echoed through the once haunted chapel, the wind howled outside, no longer a death knell but a spirited song celebrating their victory. They were more than individuals, they were a force capable of facing anything together, and as they filed out into the cool night, they held their heads high, their voices ringing with laughter beyond the storm, the shadows left behind, flickering memories fading like ghostly phantoms. Together, we can face any truth, Ezekiel shouted, his heart swelling with joy, and at that moment, Willow Creek embraced the dawn of a brave new chapter. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will blow your mind. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. We need your energy. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this breathtaking conclusion. What did you think? What will come next? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans understand the importance of showing support, so let us grow this incredible community together.